Louisa Vaughn, you're a fool to go back. Phoebe Sheridan propped her fists on her hips and glared as she repeated the words Louisa had heard half a dozen times since she'd announced her decision. You have no future there. Though Louisa couldn't deny the truth of her best friend's accusations, she wasn't going to admit how much she dreaded returning to Sweetwater Crossing and seeing the changes her oldest sister had made to their home. Instead, she continued folding the clothing she planned to take with her and said as mildly as she could, You know your mother can't travel by herself. We'll be back as soon as she takes care of matters. There was no reason to remind Phoebe that her father had died under what were euphemistically called difficult circumstances, and that Louisa didn't want Mrs. Sheridan to be alone if she faced scorn or pity. After all, fear of the townspeople's reaction was the reason Phoebe refused to accompany her mother. I won't give them a chance to laugh at me, she declared when Mrs. Sheridan had read the telegram to her. I won't. Louisa abandoned her packing and crossed the room she and Phoebe had shared for more than half a year to wrap her arms around her friend's waist and draw her close. Though no one would call Phoebe beautiful, Louisa had always envied her blonde hair and what Mama had called Phoebe's patrician nose. They were so much more distinguished than Louisa's medium brown hair and ordinary nose. But your eyes are prettier than mine, Phoebe had told her when they'd both been finding fault with their appearance. Yours are like dark sapphires. Mine are faded blue. Right now, Phoebe's pale blue eyes were filled with apprehension, her need for reassurance evident. I doubt anyone will laugh, Louisa said softly. Besides, going for the funeral doesn't mean staying there. We'll be back in a week. The journey would take 2 days each way, and surely 3 days would be enough to bury Doc Sheridan and close his office. I wish you'd come with us. As heartbreaking as it had been, Louisa knew she would have regretted being absent when her father was laid to rest. Phoebe shook her head. I am never, ever going back to that town. And you shouldn't either. You know Cousin Jake would accompany Ma, so don't use that as an excuse. But Mrs. Sheridan hadn't asked Cousin Jake to drive her. She'd asked Louisa, and Louisa could not refuse, not after Mrs. Sheridan had helped Louisa escape Sweetwater Crossing.